If Wang Lin were to use his immortal power and fully unleash his methods, he could indeed kill these life souls. However, even if these life souls disappear, more would emerge, reforming into the same entity. It can be said that these spiritual entities made of life souls are, in a certain sense, immortal. Unless the star cultivation crystal shatters, only then would these life souls collapse. No one knows if the next life souls that appear might contain the essence of someone they are familiar with. If such a thing happens, how should they act? If it is their own life soul, it would be easy enough to deal with, as there would be a peculiar resonance between them. Of course, among the cultivators entering the Vermilion Bird Tomb, many are heartless and cold-blooded, and after observing for some time, they learned of these secrets. They began to slaughter the life souls, destroying one after another, waiting for the spiritual entities to once again gather life souls and reform. This cycle continues, with the hope of encountering their own life soul. Qian Feng is one such individual. At this moment, Qian Feng is situated on a towering mountain peak in the middle of the Vermilion Bird Tomb. There is a vast cave here, and Qian Feng sits cross-legged outside the cave, his face extremely dark. He was the first to enter the Vermilion Bird Tomb, where he encountered those spiritual entities formed by life souls. These entities were essentially invincible, and in the end, the earliest group of cultivators and the ancestors of the immortal remnant clan encountered beings similar to Murong Yun and made their way toward the mountain peak where Wang Lin currently resides. There, some were deceived into the altar. Qian Feng did not fall for this trap and secretly fled. After much hardship, he finally found the true entrance to the Vermilion Bird Tomb and entered. While the interior of the tomb is smaller than the exterior, it is still vast. Moreover, the spiritual entities formed by life souls are not only more numerous but also possess incredible strength, which Qian Feng cannot withstand, forcing him to retreat. During his time inside, he never found the tomb of the first-generation Vermilion Bird. As time passed, more and more cultivators and immortal remnant clan members entered the interior. Qian Feng personally witnessed a familiar infant metamorphosis cultivator, who, after several immortal remnant clan members joined forces using an enormous amount of rune power to kill a powerful spiritual entity, immediately had their eyes dim, falling to the ground and dying without any prior warning. This scene caused everyone around to immediately be shocked. Through his investigations, Qian Feng discovered that this person's soul had shattered, and they were completely dead. Those who can enter the Vermilion Bird Tomb are all deep thinkers, and at this moment, they immediately understood the true reason behind this. As a result, when dealing with the spiritual entities, some people began to hesitate, but the more they hesitated, the less they could succeed, like a deadlock. Qian Feng has been sitting outside this cave for nearly half a month, his anxiety making him restless. He does not know how much longer the star cultivation crystal will last before it shatters. If he doesn't act soon and withdraw his life soul, only death awaits him. Vermilion Bird, you old bastard, you should have just died. Why do you have to drag everyone else into the grave with you? Qian Feng gritted his teeth, punching the ground. He took a deep breath, his eyes flashing as he glanced at the cave in front of him, silently counting the time. Then he slapped his storage pouch, and immediately, a black gourd appeared in his hand. He made a hand seal with his right hand and pointed at the gourd, shouting, "Red Butterfly, come out." A crystalline light flashed from the gourd, and Red Butterfly appeared beside Qian Feng. She wore a red robe, her appearance still as beautiful as before, her eyes empty and devoid of any spirit. At this moment, however, the once proud and heroic aura she had was gone, replaced only by a heartbreaking sorrow and a cold, indifferent apathy. This gourd was a priceless treasure of Qian Feng's family, said to have been passed down by his ancestors. The gourd contained a hidden world, capable not only of storing items but, most importantly, it could contain living beings. When the time comes, it should be restored. You go in and bring it out. Qian Feng spoke in a deep voice. Red Butterfly did not speak, slowly walking into the cave. Qian Feng took a deep breath, his hands forming seals. Immortal power surged within him, coalescing into a crystalline light sphere about the size of a fist between his fingers. His expression darkened, his gaze fixed on the depths of the cave. After a short while, a roar echoed from within the cave, followed by the rumbling sounds of the ground shaking. A red glow flashed inside the cave, and Red Butterfly's figure appeared, swiftly standing beside Qian Feng. At the same time, a towering figure burst from the cave. It was a giant over 10 zhang tall, radiating black light, with black mist swirling around it. With every step it took, the ground trembled. The moment this figure emerged from the cave, Qian Feng's eyes flashed with a cold gleam. He suddenly thrust the crystalline light sphere forward, and it shot out like lightning, breaking through the air and rapidly charging toward the towering figure. A roar of anger erupted from the towering figure, and immediately after, his body trembled, disintegrating into countless black threads that scattered in all directions, narrowly avoiding the crystalline light sphere. Explosion! Qian Feng murmured. As soon as the word left his mouth, the crystalline light sphere exploded with a tremendous force, releasing a surge of immortal power that surged outward faster than lightning, howling through the air in all directions. The entire mountain trembled violently, collapsing in multiple areas. Amid the rumbling sounds, the countless fine threads that flew in all directions were all destroyed without exception, disintegrating completely. This is the 69th time, and I still haven't encountered my life soul. Qian Feng furrowed his brow. He knew that the current method was not ideal, but given the immense size of the vermilion bird tomb and the numerous dangers within, his cultivation level was insufficient to search the entire place. Unable to locate the star cultivation crystal, he had no choice but to resort to this clumsy method, hoping for a miracle. Outside the vermilion bird tomb, atop the mountain with the altar, Wang Lin held a black orb in his hand, leaping down from the peak. As for the unattractive woman, Wang Lin paid her no heed. I won't kill you, but I can seal you. This seal will be permanent. While you won't die immediately, once the owners of the life souls within you reach the end of their lifespan, you will die completely. Wang Lin's voice was calm as he spoke slowly. During his time in the vermilion bird tomb, Wang Lin had often thought about how to deal with these life soul creatures. After much contemplation, he had come up with this method. By using the vast number of prohibitions within the forbidden banner, he could seal the life souls inside the spiritual entity. Over time, this would create a binding effect. Additionally, by incorporating a soul of similar cultivation from the soul banner, the spiritual entity's chances of regathering its life souls would be effectively cut off. Once all the life souls within the entity naturally died, the entity itself would perish. Wang Lin had no time to test if this method would work, but to Murong Yun, it was like a thunderclap, shaking him to his core. I'm immortal. After my life souls die, I can still collect new ones and revive. Murong Yun's roar came from the black orb. Wang Lin snorted coldly, landing at the foot of the mountain. He pointed to the ground, and the earth immediately trembled. With a loud rumble, a deep, cross-shaped pit several yards wide appeared. Wang Lin jumped into the pit, placing the black orb inside, and began setting up prohibitions around it. Inside the black orb, Murong Yun, sensing Wang Lin's actions, immediately shouted, "What are you doing? I'm sealing you in here. I'll return in 100 years to see if you're dead, and then I'll know if this method works." Wang Lin replied flatly, continuing to set the prohibitions. What do you really want? Murong Yun fell silent for a moment before shouting. Wang Lin's gaze flashed. Calmly, he said, I want my life soul. That's impossible. We were formed from the star cultivation crystal, made up of life souls. You can't extract a specific life soul, and as a spiritual entity like me, I don't have the power to collect a cultivator's life soul. Only the powerful beings inside the star cultivation crystal can absorb the life souls of strong cultivators. Murong Yun spoke quickly. Wang Lin's eyes glinted coldly. Shaking his head slightly, he finished placing the final seal and leaped out of the pit. At the bottom of the pit, only the black orb wrapped in prohibitions remained, sitting alone on the ground surrounded by glowing seals. I know the true way to enter the inner area. Murong Yun shouted immediately, not daring to take a chance. If he lost, he might truly die. Wang Lin glanced at the distant mountain range and shook his head. I know too, he replied, pressing his right hand against the ground. The cracked earth began to slowly close, and just as it seemed ready to seal completely, Murong Yun's roar echoed. Inside the tomb, there is a king. He was the first spiritual entity to be born here. Only he can extract a specific life soul from the star cultivation crystal. It's true. This is true. How can I find him? Wang Lin asked, pressing his hand to the ground. The sealing process paused. Inside, keep going east. 9 mountains form a chain, creating a deep valley. The mist that spreads out there isn't black. It's white, very easy to recognize. At the very bottom of that valley is where the king resides. Murong Yun quickly explained. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. He raised his right hand and moved his body, vanishing from the spot. The crack in the earth rumbled as it sealed back together. Murong Yun's voice faded into silence as the ground closed completely, leaving no trace of the opening. Wang Lin appeared outside a valley deep in the mountain range. He had previously used his divine sense to scan the area and had noticed this valley. In the valley, there was an altar, identical to the one at the peak of the previous mountain. However, as Wang Lin's figure entered the valley, he suddenly stopped, his steps coming to a halt, his gaze flashing with cold light. A stunningly beautiful woman sat on the edge of the altar, her eyes locking with Wang Lin's. Willow Eyebrows. Wang Lin. Willow Eyebrows smiled softly, her voice gentle. Wang Lin's expression grew colder. He glanced at the altar beside Willow Eyebrows, then said flatly, "Clear the way." A trace of weakness appeared in Willow Eyebrows' eyes as she looked at Wang Lin and softly asked, "Wang Lin, do you dislike me?" Wang Lin frowned slightly, coldly staring at her, and replied in a deep voice, "Clear the way." At this moment, a gentle breeze swept through the valley, scattering across the land, carrying away the strands of hair from Willow Eyebrows' forehead, adding an ethereal touch to her beauty. Willow Eyebrows was stunningly beautiful. She gently tucked the loose strands of hair behind her ear, her eyes revealing a hint of sorrow as she cast a fleeting glance at Wang Lin before rising to her feet. "Wang Lin, you are indeed a heart of stone. Is it that besides Li Muan, you have no room for anyone else in your heart?" A flash of cold light passed through Wang Lin's eyes as he stared at Willow Eyebrows. With a swipe of his hand, a celestial sword appeared in his grip. Without hesitation, he infused it with immortal power, causing the sword to glow blindingly as he swung it forward with force. A slash that could tear the heavens. The sword, imbued with immortal power, shot forward like a lightning meteor, creating a massive wave of force that instantly roared through the valley. Willow Eyebrows' expression remained unchanged. With a delicate gesture of her hand, she formed a seal and lightly tapped the air in front of her. Instantly, an illusory peacock appeared in front of her. As the sword light approached, the peacock's eyes flashed with green brilliance, and with a shake of its body, more than a dozen brilliant feathers fell from its body, blocking the incoming strike. Boom! The sword light collided with the feathers, sending a shockwave through the valley, causing the edges of Wang Lin and Willow Eyebrows' garments to flutter violently. A gleam of sharpness flickered in Willow Eyebrows' eyes as she looked at Wang Lin and said softly, "It truly is the early infant metamorphosis stage. Wang Lin, your cultivation has improved so quickly." A cold light flickered in Wang Lin's eyes as he looked at the celestial sword in his hand. He gently stroked it with his left hand and spoke in a deep voice, "Willow Eyebrows, I will say it one last time, clear the way, or I will use all my strength." Willow Eyebrows bit her lip, shaking her head as she softly said, "I cannot clear the way. Wang Lin, once you enter, there is no way out. Why don't you give me your artistic conception, and I will help you reclaim your life soul." Wang Lin stared at her and suddenly smiled, saying, "1,000 illusions of heartlessness. Willow Eyebrows, do you really think I haven't seen through it by now?" There was no change in Willow Eyebrows' expression as she chuckled softly. "Of course, I didn't think that. That great-eared cultivator must have come to meet me just to let you understand my artistic conception. Indeed, my artistic conception is the 1,000 illusions of heartlessness. Your understanding of the cycle of life and death is also the most heartless thing in the heavenly Tao. If heaven had emotions, it would not be the Tao. You and I are essentially the same. I cultivate the art of the 1,000 illusions through my avatars, comprehending different emotions, and ultimately perfected the path of heartlessness. You, on the other hand, started with emotions, comprehending life and death, seeing through the mortal world, and grasping the cycle of life and death. I believe you now understand. The cycle of life and death in the heavenly Tao is also a heartless path. You and I are one and the same." Wang Lin stared at Willow Eyebrows and tapped his storage pouch. The forbidden banner appeared in his hand. He didn't want to use the soul banner so soon. Its true purpose should be saved for the final moments, when grabbing the life soul or when fighting the king of life soul creatures. With a flick of the forbidden banner, the prohibitions immediately turned into streams of restriction chi, rushing through the valley, filling the air. "Willow Eyebrows, the Vermilion Bird Patriarch is about to die. There's no need for us to fight," Wang Lin said in a deep voice. After all, Willow Eyebrows was at the mid-infant metamorphosis stage. Without using the Billion Soul banner, it would be difficult to resolve things quickly. If too much time passed, it could jeopardize their chances of retrieving the life soul, and that would ruin everything. Willow Eyebrows laughed lightly, lifting her head to look at the sky. The previous softness in her eyes disappeared, replaced by an expression of ruthless indifference. "Wang Lin, even if my master did not send me to find you, I would still fight you. I will use your Tao to perfect my 1,000 illusions of heartlessness. Come at me." Wang Lin's gaze turned completely cold. He formed hand seals, his right hand pointing forward as he softly uttered, "Bind." Suddenly, the prohibitions within the forbidden banner began to scream and roar, resonating throughout the valley. Streams of restrictive light immediately flashed and condensed in front of Wang Lin, forming a black long spear hovering in the air. Purple lightning crackled and danced along its surface, making a crisp, cracking sound. Wang Lin moved, turning into a blur as he grabbed the spear. Immortal power surged within him, immediately infusing into the spear. The spear suddenly glowed with a purple-golden radiance. Every prohibition that composed the spear was now imbued with immortal power, emanating a chaotic aura that spread throughout the valley. "Get out of my way," Wang Lin roared. He leapt into the air, turning into a black blur. With a long spear in hand, he thrust it forward like a dragon diving into the sea, howling madly as it tore through the sky. A thunderous rumble echoed where the spear passed, as if the heavens themselves were shaking. A flicker of strange light flashed in Lu Mei's otherwise indifferent eyes. She spoke softly, "You may have many magic treasures, but at the early infant metamorphosis stage, the immortal power you can muster is still too little." As she spoke, she extended her jade-like finger. A flash of green light burst forth, and the phantom of the peacock reappeared at her fingertip. Its eyes shimmered with a bewitching light as it soared into the air, floating above her, fixing its gaze on Wang Lin, who was charging in with thunderous momentum. "Open," Lu Mei whispered just as Wang Lin's spear tore through the air toward her. In that instant, the peacock fanned its tail in full display. A stunning and majestic peacock display filled the valley, and in that moment, the entire canyon lit up, as if all the light had gathered onto that magnificent fan of feathers, radiating dazzling brilliance. At the same time, an overwhelming surge of immortal power burst out from the peacock's tail, transforming into tendrils of white immortal chi that flooded the surroundings. Though described at length, all of this happened in a flash. Wang Lin's figure charged forward like a bolt of lightning, spear crackling with thunder. Boom! A deafening explosion sounded the moment the peacock unfurled its tail. The vast immortal power unleashed an unimaginable shockwave that caused Wang Lin's body to stall briefly in midair. His expression darkened. Though halted for just an instant, his reaction was lightning fast. With a flick of his spear, he renewed his assault, this time, even faster, thrusting it straight at the peacock. Boom! Another thunderous roar rang out. The spear, gleaming like a flood dragon, collided with the peacock's tail display. Instantly, the purple-gold glow on the black spear dissipated, and the weapon disintegrated into waves of restriction chi, scattering outward. The peacock remained beautiful, but its colors were now slightly dimmer. Lu Mei's face turned pale. In a soft voice, she said, "This treasure of yours, it's neither a pseudo-immortal treasure nor a true immortal treasure. How strange." After hurling the spear, Wang Lin immediately retreated. With his right hand, he reached into the void and summoned a 3-zhonglong banner into his grasp. The billion-soul banner had finally been brought out. He didn't intend to waste any more time. He would kill this woman with the banner and enter the Vermilion Bird tomb. As soon as the banner appeared, Lu Mei's gaze turned cold. She looked at it and said gently, "So, Elder Duntian really did give you that banner. But Wang Lin, I'd already guessed you had it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have waited for you by the altar. I was the second person to enter the Vermilion Bird tomb, and this location was one I chose as the battlefield for our duel. If you insist on using the soul banner, I'll destroy this altar. It will take days before it can reform, and those days will delay you." Wang Lin's eyes were icy as he stared at Lu Mei. Situnan had once explained the altar to him. It was crafted by the first-generation Vermilion Bird and served as a teleportation device. After being activated with a star cultivation crystal, it was imbued with strange powers from within, granting it certain mystical abilities. Even if destroyed, it would reform within a few days, endless, cyclical, eternal. Its properties bore some resemblance to that of the life-soul creatures. "What is your true purpose?" Wang Lin asked in a low voice. Lu Mei smiled faintly and looked at him. "I have no grand motive," she said softly. "Lu Mei merely wishes to battle you in the conceptual realm." Wang Lin locked eyes with her. With a squeeze of his right hand, the billion-soul banner vanished. Then he formed a seal with his left hand and touched his forehead. At once, the sky darkened, as if torn apart by an invisible hand. Waves of gray mist surged from the horizon. As more gray mist rolled forth, a massive painting scroll emerged from within, unfolding across the heavens. The moment the scroll appeared, it emitted a strange energy that blanketed the surroundings. Lu Mei's eyes sparkled. She took a deep breath and sat cross-legged on the altar, closing her eyes. As soon as they shut, The peacock before her let out a piercing cry and floated upward, hovering above her. With a single shudder, it grew rapidly. Within moments, it had transformed into a colossal peacock over 10 zhang tall. Its tail, in particular, had become incredibly vast, almost covering the entire valley. My path is the 1,000 illusions of heartlessness, Lu Mei's voice echoed from within the peacock. Like the 1,000 feathers on this tail, each one is an illusion. But in truth, my path is not 1,000 illusions, it is 999. When the final illusion takes shape, my conceptual realm will reach the late infant metamorphosis stage. Wang Lin, will you help me complete this final illusion? Wang Lin's eyes were cold. He raised his right hand and pointed skyward. The scroll above rumbled with thunder, revealing landscapes in black and white. From within its painted depths, torrents of gray mist surged violently. The last illusion, I will fulfill you, and make sure it is something you will remember for this lifetime, something you will never forget. Wang Lin's voice was icy cold as he waved his right hand downward. The peacock let out a sharp cry, a sound so crisp that it seemed to pierce the heavens. It raised its head high, and its majestic feathers bloomed in a dazzling display. Under the flickering light, 7 colors, red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple, emerged, casting a strange glow that shifted between light and dark. It exuded a deep and ruthless indifference, scattering outward. Immediately, under the scroll of life and death reincarnation, a new aura was added to the world, an aura of detachment. The indifference in this aura could make frost even colder and could cause the seasons to change abruptly. Within the valley, Wang Lin instantly felt this icy aura. It was a kind of ruthlessness, a natural coldness. At that moment, in his eyes, the peacock was but an illusion. The one truly gazing upon the azure dragon was Lu Mei. Her gaze was cold, indifferent, and proud. While her gaze might have been similar to the red butterfly's gaze was heartless, whereas Lu Mei's was something altogether different. Those with emotions can sever ties, which is the definition of heartlessness. But those born without emotions are naturally above such notions of heartlessness. A deep and ancient roar echoed, and a huge, forest-like mouth suddenly appeared beside the peacock. In the blink of an eye, it collapsed and vanished into a thick gray mist that enveloped the peacock entirely. Everything in this world cannot escape life and death. What exists will continue to exist, and what must dissipate will fade. Wang Lin sighed softly. He thought of Li Muan. The peacock cried again, and the 7-colored light immediately fused together, forming a rainbow that pierced through the gray mist and reached the sky, merging with the mountains and rivers within the painting. The most beautiful things in this world are often the most heartless. A rainbow is beautiful, drawing the gaze of millions, yet it is heartless. No one can ever hold on to it. Just like the peacock screen, though beautiful, it leads only to oblivion. The colors within the sky's painting began to shift as the rainbow merged with it, turning from black and white to vibrant hues. The gray mist around the peacock also began to change, now subtly enhanced by other colors. Only one illusion remains. Once I achieve the final illusion, I will master the 1,000 illusions. Wang Lin, where is that final illusion? If you have only these powers, if you cannot resist without using the soul banner, then you have truly disappointed me. I could have struck when I first met you at the soul refining sect, but at that time, you were too weak. Your artistic conception was not yet perfected, unable to materialize. That is why I waited. At this moment, Wang Lin remained expressionless, gazing up at the scroll of life and death reincarnation in the sky, silent. Within the scroll, the 7 colors deepened, no longer just black and white. The landscape within the painting began to appear more lifelike. Even the trees, previously outlined in 2 colors, now bloomed with vivid green. You spoke of letting what should exist remain, and letting what should dissipate fade, but have you truly done so? Wang Lin, I did not expect such a huge flaw in your artistic conception. No wonder you've been unwilling to use your artistic conception attacks. So this is why. Lu Mei's voice carried a strong sense of disappointment. Wang Lin's gaze was as cold as ice. With a wave of his right hand, a wisp of pink mist shot out from his storage pouch, flashing and flying into the scroll of life and death reincarnation above. Those that should dissipate will naturally fade. But what should remain? If it fades, I will not allow it. Lu Mei, I bring you your final illusion. Wang Lin said coldly. At this moment, a hint of pink suddenly appeared within the sky scroll. Within the pink, a slender figure began to emerge, not Li Muan, but the fairy sister Su Ligua had spoken of. The 3 ancestors of the immortal remnant clan, when they transformed into cultivators, developed a wisp of artistic conception. After returning to the Immortal Remnant clan, they abandoned this cultivation, causing their soul essence to collapse. But this wisp of artistic conception was incredibly resilient. It had never truly dissipated. Wang Lin had obtained it and kept it in his storage pouch. This was the real trump card he had been planning to use against Lu Mei. In fact, when he had first received the jade slip from Zhou Wutai regarding Lu Mei's artistic conception, Wang Lin had already formed this plan. Although it was a cruel one, if Lu Mei remained obstinate, Wang Lin would not hesitate to use it. When he saw Zhou Wutai's jade slip, Wang Lin became even more certain that this wisp of artistic conception was the key to defeating Lu Mei. To break the path of heartlessness, one must use the most extreme and licentious artistic conception to invoke desire and emotions, thus breaking through heartlessness. At the same time, an evil, lascivious laugh echoed from within the scroll. The seductive figure of the enchantress gradually solidified within the scroll of life and death reincarnation, as if moaning softly. What a cruel heart! You've trapped me here for so long. Only when you finally need me do you release me. Wang Lin, could it be that your heart is made of iron? But this body, I truly like it, she said, letting out a delicate laugh. The sound of her laughter caused Wang Lin's heart to tremble, and it took him a while to regain his composure. Above the immortal sword, a wave of black mist surged, and Su Liguo materialized, staring fixedly at the enchanting lady, his eyes full of intense desire. This is... The voice of Lu Mei, filled with hesitation, came from within the peacock. There was no pity in Wang Lin's eyes as he softly spoke. The path of life and death, reincarnation. The painting scroll in the sky suddenly folded in half, as if two mighty waves were colliding from the north and south. With a loud snap, the scroll closed completely. As it closed, the rainbow shattered, its vibrant colors violently pushed out. But then, the scroll trembled once more, and suddenly stretched again to the north and south. However, within the painting, there were no more mountains or waters, only the figure of a woman. She was stunningly beautiful, her eyes filled with lewdness. She covered her mouth with a soft laugh, then leapt from the scroll, transforming into a pink mist that soared through the sky, heading straight for the massive peacock above Lu Mei. The peacock hesitated for a moment, and its gaze conveyed Lu Mei's heart, a hesitation rarely seen in her. Lu Mei, weren't you seeking the final illusion? Wang Lin said indifferently. The peacock's hesitation vanished in an instant, and its gaze turned cold again. Lu Mei's voice echoed from within. Wang Lin, you're despicable. Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged as the pink mist, transformed by the enchantress, descended like a shooting star. It split in two above the peacock, then immediately entered its eyes, disappearing inside. The peacock's body immediately emitted waves of pink mist, which carried a strong aphrodisiac allure. It shuddered, then collapsed into scattered crystalline particles, vanishing completely, revealing Lu Mei sitting cross-legged on the altar. At this moment, a rosy hue spread across her delicate face, making her already breathtaking beauty even more vibrant and captivating. However, Wang Lin's gaze remained cold. He didn't care whether the enchantress soul would successfully seize Lu Mei's body, nor whether Lu Mei would complete the final illusion. To be precise, there was no deep enmity between Wang Lin and Lu Mei. This entire situation was a bit complicated. If Lu Mei hadn't insisted on a confrontation, Wang Lin would never have used the enchantress. Indeed, Lu Mei's use of the enchantress to break her heartless path through lewd and vile means was despicable. But Wang Lin didn't care about that. He moved forward, determined. All he needed was to enter the altar and teleport to the Vermilion Bird tomb. He had already decided. First, he would look for the tomb of the first-generation Vermilion Bird. If he found it, that would be best. If not, he would search for the King of Life Souls to retrieve the Life Soul. Once he had the Life Soul, Wang Lin wouldn't care about Vermilion Bird Star any longer. He would leave immediately, leaving the Vermilion Bird Star behind. Over the years, Wang Lin had felt that Tua Sin, from the ancient god ruins, would soon break free from the ancient god's constraints. Once he did, Wang Lin knew he would have no power to resist him. At this very moment, in the eastern part of the Vermilion Bird Kingdom on the Vermilion Bird Continent, black mist filled the air. The first ancestor, Yun Kezi, the third ancestor, and two 10-leaf ancestors of the Immortal Remnant clan sat cross-legged together. Above their brows, their life-bound plants glowed with an eerie light, and between them lay a skull. This skull was engraved with a rune, whose complexity far surpassed the runes Wang Lin had obtained, and could not even be compared. Especially on this skull, a powerful, almost incomprehensible aura had condensed. Ancestor Su has received guidance from the ancient deities of Runestar, breaking through to the 11-leaf level and becoming the third 12-leaf spell curse master in the history of our clan. The rune on this skull now contains divine power. With this sacrifice, one of us should be able to enter the Vermilion Bird Tomb. Yun Kazi said with reverence, gazing at the skull. Then, who will go? The first ancestor spoke slowly. The third ancestor, a seductive and graceful woman, no longer smiled playfully. She sighed lightly and said, "It would be best if the first ancestor went, but since the first ancestor's physical body is in the lower ranks of our clan, your divine rune projection might be affected in the Vermilion Bird Tomb. Perhaps." Before she could finish, her expression changed. She suddenly raised her head, staring toward the direction of the Vermilion Bird Tomb, her face slowly contorting into an odd expression. My artistic conception from back then. It's actually being seized. How could I let her have her way? The third ancestor nodded and said, "It's precisely that artistic conception. If this soul-seizing succeeds, it will extract part of my essence. How could I let her succeed? This thing was separated by me in the past, but I never expected it to be obtained by some small cultivator. That cultivator is likely in the Vermilion Bird Tomb now. While I can't directly destroy that artistic conception, I can alter it. Normally, it wouldn't matter, but during a soul-seizing, this change might just cause her failure." The three ancestors finished speaking, and with a flick of his right hand at his brow, the strange plant above his forehead immediately began to writhe eerily. One by one, runes flashed from his brow and vanished into the void. Inside the Vermilion Bird Tomb, Wang Lin stepped into the altar and instantly felt a surge of teleportation power rise within it. He crouched down, pressing his right hand against the altar, about to teleport out. At that moment, without any warning, a vast amount of pink mist erupted from the 7 orifices of Lu Mei's face. The enchanting princess's startled cry immediately echoed. How could this happen? There's a force identical to my essence interfering with my soul seizing. How could this be? The enchantress, who had no memory of her past since her birth, was encountering this for the first time today. Previously, when she entered Lu Mei's body and was cracking Lu Mei's artistic conception, she suddenly felt a sharp pain from deep within her soul. The pain rendered her utterly powerless, and an overwhelming sense of weakness surged through her body. In that instant, she was immediately countered by Lu Mei's artistic conception, forcing her to burst out of Lu Mei's body. The moment the enchantress erupted from Lu Mei's 7 orifices, Lu Mei instantly opened her eyes and whispered, "The final illusion, you can't escape." As Lu Mei spoke, a massive amount of pink mist was immediately sucked back into her 7 orifices. The enchantress screamed in agony, her body still weak and frail. A look of despair flashed in her eyes, but immediately she gritted her teeth and shouted, "If I can't seize the soul, then merge with it." Speaking so, it was unclear what method the enchantress used, but her soul immediately radiated a strange glow. Then, with a loud crash, it collapsed, along with a powerful corrupting artistic conception that also shattered, all sucked into Lu Mei's body. All of this happened at lightning speed. Almost at the same moment Wang Lin's gaze fell on Lu Mei, the enchantress crumbled. In that instant, a storm of pink mist erupted madly from every pore on Lu Mei's body, her clothes instantly disintegrating into ash. What appeared before Wang Lin was a breathtakingly beautiful and alluring figure that would captivate anyone who gazed upon it. Wang Lin, unable to teleport away fast enough as the mist spread, immediately retreated at high speed. At the same time, he waved his right hand in front of him, unleashing a fierce wind carrying immortal power, which immediately spread and blew toward the mist. However, even though he retreated quickly, the pink mist showed no sign of stopping. It seemed to exist beyond reality itself, unaffected by the gale, and continued to spread wildly. The speed of its expansion was so fast that even while Wang Lin was retreating, some of the mist still entered his body through his pores. However, the amount that entered his body was not much, and Wang Lin quickly suppressed it with his immortal power. His expression darkened as he swiftly retreated, barely escaping the mist invasion. This mist isn't a spell. It's a manifestation of artistic conception, so divine techniques are ineffective against it. Wang Lin said darkly, looking toward the vast ring of pink mist in the valley. From within the mist, a graceful figure slowly emerged, revealing a familiar face. Lu Mei, once with flawless white skin, now radiated a rosy hue, especially her eyes, which at times showed a ruthless glint, at times flashing with lustful desire. Her expression reflected a painful struggle. At this moment, Lu Mei's ruthlessness faded, and the lustful desire took over completely. A beautiful smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. With a flick of her right hand, the surrounding pink mist immediately howled and surged outwards at an unimaginable speed, spreading wildly. This spread was like an assault, carrying immense force, as if a storm was about to collapse, roaring outward. The spread of the mist was so rapid that within a blink of an eye, a vast area of tens of thousands of miles was turned into a pink world. The peaks of the mountains were enveloped in the mist, resembling a mystical fog, giving the illusion of a dreamlike scene. Wang Lin, not far from Lu Mei and at the center of this expanding mist, had once been able to avoid such attacks with his concentration and breath control. But now, as the mist already lingered in his body from his previous retreat, it began to break through the suppression, causing his mind to become lost for the first time. The 1,000 illusions of heartlessness reached the mid-infant metamorphosis stage within Lu Mei. These illusions were not just any illusions, but 999 of them, with each one representing a life lived by Lu Mei. It was just like in the past when Lu Mei was within the Tian Dao sect, those were merely illusions of her true self. The illusionary body, which Lu Mei had experienced 999 times, was only one illusion away from achieving the perfect state of the 1,000 illusions of heartlessness in the late stage of infant metamorphosis. All she needed was enough immortal jade to push her immortal power to its critical point, allowing her to take the final step toward ultimate achievement, to face the test of life and death, one step leading to death, the other to triumph. The appearance of the Charm Princess posed a severe trial for Lu Mei. Without the accidental help of the third ancestor, Lu Mei would likely have had her soul seized by the Charm Princess, becoming a puppet whose only purpose would be to indulge in fleshly pleasures. Thus, in Lu Mei's eyes, Wang Lin was despicable. Thanks to the third ancestor's unintentional aid, the Charm Princess was forced to collapse, choosing fusion. As a result, her entire existence became Lu Mei's 1,000th illusion. At this moment, the realm of understanding surpassed Wang Lin's early-stage cycle of life and death insight, which was far from being able to resist. Pink mist spread across tens of thousands of miles, gradually gathering toward the valley. This gathering was completed by the following day, but the pink mist within the valley never ceased. From time to time, a woman's faint, seemingly pained moan would echo from the mist. Yet, the sound was filled with a sense of beauty, like the soft melody of a fairy, stirring the listener's heart and evoking intense emotions. After an unknown amount of time, the pink mist gradually thinned, revealing a scene within. A woman lay at the edge of the altar, her eyes slowly clearing. Above the altar, a wave of residual energy from a recent teleportation lingered, clearly indicating that someone had just teleported away. After a short while, all the pink mist dissipated, and the valley returned to its normal appearance. The woman sat up, her delicate brows furrowed. With a wave of her right hand, a storage pouch flew from a distance into her palm. In an instant, a flash of white light appeared, and the woman's naked body was quickly covered by a white robe. She stood up, gazing down at the scattered red stains on the altar, falling silent. The final illusion of the 1,000 illusions of heartlessness. I never expected it to be this one. Once this illusion manifests, the realm of understanding immediately transforms into the 1,000 illusions of desire. It all feels like a dream, yet it's so real. I never imagined that the last illusion of my 1,000 illusions of heartlessness would lead to such. Master had me leave a trace of his presence in his heart, but little did he know, his aura would appear in my final illusion. Lu Mei's delicate brows furrowed tightly as she raised her head to look into the distance, sighing deeply. Within that sigh, there was a complex mix of emotions. She suddenly felt a bit lost. This situation had exceeded her expectations. Inside the Vermilion Bird Tomb, in a desolate wasteland, Wang Lin's figure flashed and appeared. Upon his arrival, he looked up at the sky, his eyes showing a complex expression. Under the influence of the pink mist, it seemed as though he had experienced a dream. The moment he woke, he saw the woman beneath him. At that moment, his emotions were deeply stirred. There are still things to be done. As for Lu Mei, I'll put it aside. Overthinking won't help. Sigh. Wang Lin sighed lightly as he rubbed his brow, where the heavenly reversal pearl was located. There, Li Muan's nascent soul was slowly nurturing itself, gradually recovering. One day, she would awaken. Wang Lin fell silent for a moment, then moved his body, disappearing from the spot and dashing toward the distance. The interior of the Vermilion Bird Tomb was different from what Situ Nan had described. According to Situ Nan, the tomb was not large, and in the center, there was a spiritual mountain. In that mountain was the Vermilion Bird Seal's Dao legacy, left behind by the first generation of the Vermilion Bird Patriarch, along with his corpse. Each generation of the Vermilion Bird Patriarch had to spend months meditating there when inheriting the title, thus receiving the Vermilion Bird Seal's legacy. Wang Lin expanded his divine sense, sweeping the area. Although the tomb was large, his divine sense could not fully scan it, but he quickly sensed powerful auras. Upon detecting his divine sense, these auras immediately revealed themselves, almost as if to provoke him. Wang Lin's heart stirred. These auras were all formed by life souls, and it was evident that within the Vermilion Bird tomb, there were not only more spiritual entities, but their strength was also greater. Wang Lin's gaze flashed as he locked onto a direction and rushed toward it. His first goal was to find that spiritual mountain, the center of the tomb. He knew his time was limited. Once the star cultivation crystal collapsed, only by using Situ Nan's method could he preserve his life. The star cultivation crystal was extremely domineering, granted by the Cultivation Alliance to the most powerful 6th-level cultivation nations. Only when a cultivator reached the summit stage could they experience the path to enlightenment, die at dusk, insight, and have the chance to extract their life soul from the star cultivation crystal. However, each generation of the Vermilion Bird Patriarch was forbidden from drawing out their life soul. If they did, they would immediately lose their right to use the Vermilion Bird Seal, and in some ways, lose their title as the Vermilion Bird Patriarch.